Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Welcome, everybody, to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 151, and tonight I'm lucky enough to be your host. That's right, it is Osiris Prime, along with Mr. DBQ Hams. DBQ, how are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to have you as host, and glad to be here to talk about the last 2 weeks or so of news.
Yeah. And then we also have Swiss Guard. Swiss, how are you?
Not too bad. I had to get 4 new tires on my van today, so
Oh, yikes.
dented my gaming budget a little bit.
I was just gonna say that the intonation in your voice definitely sounds like a man who's had to prioritize family spending over fun spending.
Fortunately, I've already pre-ordered Ghost of Tsushima, so that's already money that's been, it's already been on the credit card, so I'm not
Is that 2
canceling
weeks?
the pre-order.
That's the 17th.
Yeah, it's the
Is that-
17th. I think they're doing it early. Pretty excited about that one.
Nice. Yeah, you had that Charlie Brown sadness in your voice there as you talked about that. Well, tonight we have the deep dive. This is where we do our news. We talk about the news from the past couple weeks, as DB said. We'll jump into some games that have gone out of early access, some pricing, possibly upgrades here, or upping the prices here on games, and a game maybe coming back from the dead, it looks like. Let's start with a little bit of epic news. First, we're going to start with some Fortnite news. Fortnite has been around for about 3 years now, this whole time it's been in beta or early access, depending on what system you're playing on. I know on the consoles, on Xbox and on Switch, it always has the beta sticker on it or little label. Xbox and I believe PS4, they got not only the Battle Royale, but they have the Save the World mode in it too. But both of these games now are going to be out of early access and out of beta finally. It's been a long time. I'm kind of surprised, actually. I sometimes even forget it, even though I can see it like on the screen there. But they're finally coming out of early access. Looks like they're going to, I don't want to really say sunset Save the World, but they're kind of stop development, or at least slow down development on Save the World. On their blog here, they mentioned that Save the World, pretty much the main story is complete now. And that it's going to kind of endure as a premium experience. Excuse me. So it's not going to be free to play like the Battle Royale is. So there was some rumors, I think last year maybe, that it was going to come out possibly on the Switch as a free maybe upgrade, but unfortunately that's never happened. They go on to say that the Fortnite players considered to be founders who picked it up, when it first came out. We'll have the Founders Pack upgraded as a result. And in this article from IGN, and this is from Jordan Oleman. He doesn't mention what they actually get, at least not that I see, for that upgrade. But they'll get a little something. And there's going to be a new mode coming out too for it. I didn't say exactly when, but sometime soon. Let's see, where is it? It's called Ventures Mode. Or basically it would be like a season long, kind of, I'm assuming like the Battle Royale has seasons, so this is going to have seasons now, where they just have new and unique modifiers to tackle. So, gentlemen, I don't think you're big Fortnite players, but what do you think of this finally coming out for early access and kind of the one side of the game kind of being kind of out of development now, or at least not being a priority, I suppose, anymore?
That assumes that it was a priority since the fall of 2017 when it first came out. Yeah, I think this was July of 2017, I think, is when you first got Save the World.
Yeah.
But by October, November, they already had launched the Battle Royale mode, which, as we all know, quickly eclipsed the Save the World. I think it's interesting that they kept development on it to the degree that they did. It must have been passion project of some degree, because it couldn't have really been a big revenue generator. It'd be really interesting to know what those metrics are in terms of how many people, what's that user base of the Save the World mode look like, and really, besides the kind of moniker of formal release, if that changes anything for the game itself, other than basically saying, yep, we've kind of capped it off, and as you said, not necessarily sunsetting, but kind of considering development finished, which, given the focus and where they've spent their development time, it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Like, I would be really interested to see how many people are actually playing the Save the World mode. And that was the one that, like, that's where all the mechanics of the game make sense. Um, I mean, when I played the Battle Royale a bit, I absolutely despise the building mechanics that seem like that, encompass the game. I just, for me, they're out of place. They make sense in the context of that lineage of the Save the World mode, and it's interesting just to like stand on the outside and see how it's all like gone down across the years. As far as the coming out of early access, that label has no meaning. I mean, it just it doesn't mean anything anymore. I don't. There was a time, I think, when early access actually made sense, in that, like, we're trying to tweak some stuff and experiment, but now it's just like I, I don't know if there's like some legal moniker for it, or like why they would do it, but it just feels like all, like, with Google, everything's in beta, and it's almost like, well, if there's a bug or something, hey, we're still early access, you know don't get too bent out of shape. That de facto, this game is a monstrosity and a leviathan of revenue, and so yeah, it for all intents and purposes, they say they're removing the early access, but what it boils down to is they're starting to sunset the Save the World development, and I'm surprised that it's lasted this long, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was the original mode that they came out with, and I never played it. It looked interesting, but like the Switch, like I said, the Switch doesn't have it. I don't think mobile has it either, and I don't think it's super expensive. I think it's like $20-$30 on Xbox, and I'm assuming PC, maybe even cheaper on PC. But I remember when it was originally announced, because it was supposed to be like kind of like their next big thing, from Epic. I think they came off of what was the game that they were working on? I can't remember now. Can't remember what the last game was. Right before that, like the big game that they had. But Save the World came on, and it was that first like initial trailer, which was, I think, was just like a CGI trailer, just kind of a movie thing. But it was radically different from what, obviously what it's become. Just graphically, like it was a little more. I mean, Fortnite's kind of cartoony as it is, but it was even more like kind of, I don't want to say super deformed, but kind of more deformed characters, the way they looked. Still human, but obviously like their heads are exaggerated and stuff like that. But it was just, I don't know. I always thought it was kind of weird, and obviously the Battle Royale is just exploded. And I'm kind of wondering though if on the Battle Royale side maybe they'll start to maybe work on the story a little bit more. There's kind of like a loose story that kind of weaves in and out of the different seasons they do. Like, well, before this past year, obviously with COVID, obviously things are kind of a bit more stretched out lately as far as development time. But they were doing it pretty regularly, like every 3 months or so, 3.5 months. And just these past two seasons, I think, were like probably like 4.5 months or so each. So I just wonder if they're gonna, try to focus more on that and kind of just, throw a little. They do like little movies and stuff in there too, like in-game movies, not like regular movies. So I wonder if they're gonna try to focus on that and kind of bring that up a little bit more, because it was a little lackluster these past couple seasons and this past year. So they're kind of doing a lot of like tie-ins with movies and just sports stuff and all these other tie-ins that they did. So I think they kind of lost track of that maybe, and they kind of saw that, and maybe they're seeing the numbers dip a little bit maybe with that, because the story's kind of cool. What you can kind of make out of it, you kind of have to piece it together. It's not one of those things where you have to you kind of have to go online and kind of look at stuff, but it's stuff that people grab from like in the game. It's like a little posters here, or some notes on a desk here or there or something like that. So it's kind of more involved like that way, not like, say, Destiny, where you have to, go to Grimoire and you got to read the books and you got to do all this other stuff and stuff like, or even Halo too. Sometimes Halo, has all this lore that you might not really totally get if you're just playing the games. So, but it's just kind of interesting. So hopefully they'll kind of focus more on that. get that going a little bit more.
Yeah, I could see them jumping into a little more lore kind of narrative. I mean, they've done that before with like the big obelisk, cube, or the 3 days when they were totally shut down because of the asteroid, and right, like they've done some of those things. But yeah, I think Call of Duty Warzone is a nice example to point to in terms of kind of some of the Black Ops hinting that they did with the different bunkers and being able to unlock those. And there's lots of different ways that you can uh, kind of integrate some story elements in a battle royale game.
Yeah. So
Curious, like this goes back to like wishing we could see some of the metrics. I might have to do some Googling after this, but if the assets that they have at the company, if there was a significant number of people working on the Save the World mode that they can start leveraging on the Battle Royale. I find it hard to believe that they weren't just putting all their people on the Battle Royale, and that the Save the World was actually the one withering on the vine. And we know that it's being sunsetted too, by the way, because even the article says it's not going to support Battle Royale cosmetics anymore. So it's kind of, I think, at its state in time, it is what it is. But yeah, I find it hard to believe though that they were they were limiting the Battle Royale in any way intentionally,
yeah,
or due to work schedules.
yeah,
I'm sorry, not work schedules, staffing. Let me put it that way.
yeah. And I know they used to. I think they used to test ground a lot of the weapons and vehicles and stuff like that, and mechanics and Save the World, because sometimes there'd be like an article, well, not an article, but like maybe someone on a forum or like a YouTube video or whatever would show like a video of like one of the guns, and then all of a sudden like a few months later it'd show up in Battle Royale. So that'd be kind of interesting now that they might not have that test playground, like what they're going to do. Of course they have a lot of modes now too in Battle Royale. You have the Battle Labs, which is kind of, so they have creative, which is you can just make your own maps and make your own little games basically in there, and then they have Battle Labs, which is you just get thrown on the regular island, but you just kind of fool around. You just have like, I don't know, it's like a 3-hour time limit, I think, and then you can just mess around in the world and destroy stuff or do goofy things. So I wonder if they're kind of just throw stuff in there and to test bed stuff now. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that with the weapons and all the other different stuff now that's in the game. So we'll have to see. All right, so let's continue with Epic, at least not so much Fortnite. This actually came out today, and this article I'm getting this from is from Engadget from Carissa Bell. Sony invests $250 million in the developer Epic Games, Fortnite developer Epic Games. So basically, they have a minority stake in the company now, and they kind of go in the article from Sony. Sony, it doesn't say who exactly. Just says in a statement, they already had a close relationship, and the investment allows them to broaden their collaboration. So I think this goes a little bit more, though. People are probably seeing Fortnite and just think Fortnite when they say Epic, but obviously Epic has their game engine too that's out there. So, and I think people might lose a little bit track of that. There was another article I was reading, I think it might have been in IGN, where they kind of dive a little bit deeper than it does in this article. But what do you guys think of Sony buying, or investing, I should say? I don't think it's really buying a stake in Fortnite or in Epic itself, but just investing in Epic as a game company developer.
I tend to lean towards it being related to Unreal Engine more so than Fortnite. I mean, what is Sony going to do to, like, are they going to try to limit the exposure that Fortnite has? I mean, that's the like the cash cow for Epic right now. But I think it makes sense moving forward. If Sony and Microsoft, if they're in their competition, for me, like right now, what's the discriminator between the two? And it's the games. Sony seems to, in my opinion, have a better first-party portfolio, and if they don't want to have, I guess, a bland, Venn diagram massive overlap with Microsoft, they're going to want to, maintain that differentiator, and having, I guess, a minority stake and maybe some more premium access into Unreal Engine, they can kind of influence, um, or at least get priority for developing, Sony properties on that engine. You know,
Yeah, I
I
wonder about that. I wonder
yeah,
what the access will be, if it comes with a discount or it comes with additional support. Um, having a minority stake isn't huge, right? We know that Tencent owns a minority stake as well. They own about 40% of the shares of Epic.
Yeah.
I mean that it's it's more of a question, I think, of what it does in terms of the engine. Does that allow a little bit less in-house development for engines for some of Microsoft's, I mean, for some of Sony's stuff? And it also suddenly makes a whole lot more sense, like why when Epic released their Unreal 5 trailer last month, that they were talking about it running on PlayStation 5. Like suddenly, these are discussions that have been in the works for a while.
Yeah. I mean,
just I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just being able to have like Epic talk about PlayStation 5 over Xbox is worth some of the investment. I mean, if you think about it, how much did Microsoft pay Ninja to go on Mixer? I mean, so if you were $250 million isn't, I mean,
It's a lot, but not a
just
lot
for
for them.
marketing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not. So I mean, it's interesting, but I don't feel like it's like some earth-shattering business transaction.
Yeah, I mean, you do make a good point, DB. It is a minority stake, so I mean, it's not like when Microsoft bought Mojang, where they bought the whole company. So, well, I mean, maybe they're making a power play for it. Probably not, but who knows? So we'll have to see how what else this leads into. Obviously, like you said, they had the demo for the PS5. So, and obviously, go ahead.
This better not mean that like all the PlayStation PC games are going to be exclusive on the Epic Store.
It's a possibility.
Well, we already know that's not the case, right? We have
Yeah,
Horizon
they're
Zero
going on
Dawn.
Steam. Yeah.
Yep.
Not yet, at least.
Oh, right. Yeah, I could see it though. I
At
mean,
least
it
for
makes
now.
sense.
Yeah.
Yep. It
Could
would
be.
make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. At least the time exclusive, maybe. Get stuff thrown on the Epic Store. So, yeah, we'll have to see what comes of that. So, from 250 million into Epic Games to not so much, maybe a price hike for games. DB, you want to take the next story?
Sure. Yeah. So this is the story that started with 2K and NBA 2K21. Kind of the announcement there that not only would you not get a direct upgrade path if you bought the current generation uh, version, uh, but you would need to buy the Mamba Forever, the special, the standard kind of $100 deluxe edition that they have sold with NBA 2K for quite a while, in order to get kind of a free upgrade from one generation to the other. The other piece is also that they announced the pricing for Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 games, and that pricing came out at $69.99. Since then, there's been other reports. TechSpot and GameIndustry.biz have talked about how other publishers are looking at this as well. The GameIndustry.biz article actually breaks down some of the kind of inflationary increases. That things like movie tickets have gone up 39%. Netflix has gone up 100%. Cable TV has gone up 105%. And they're saying that the last time there was a price increase, which was at the start of um, the Xbox 360 generation back in 2005, and actually I think it was Activision who kind of was the first one out there last time with this $59.99 price. That they're saying that is over the course of time is a 17% percent increase. So obviously it's thinking about games, new games as a $7 purchase. as a as a as a parent, as somebody with lots of other budget responsibilities, let's say four tires on a vehicle, that suddenly thinking about dropping $70 for a brand new game uh, gives me a little sticker shock as a consumer, but at the same time, as an industry, it doesn't surprise me, right? Like this is a relatively small increase for prices that have stayed constant for 15 years. Constant being, a kind of modified word because at this point, some of those prices have been offset by microtransactions, by multiple different special editions that would increase the price, maybe by $10 to get a little bit of digital goods, maybe by $30 to $40 to be able to get a little more. Usually you have that kind of $90 to $100 kind of deluxe price point or special collector's edition, something like that. So there's a variety of ways that publishers have tried to do this, but yeah, I could, it wouldn't surprise me if this becomes the norm. I think it'll be interesting to see, how much this becomes it, because you also have some stories out there about Microsoft saying that they're not allowing publishers to change pricing. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big sticker shock, I think, was the combination of they're the first ones out of the gate um, on that, and also that it doesn't help the imagery around it, that the game that announces it is also a game that has a ton of microtransactions already built into it in terms of virtual currency. So it's not like this is a one and done type of pricing model for 2K. I think there's 2K, NBA 2K is also one of those that because it is kind of an industry leader, at least in sports and packaging, it's kind of the only basketball game in town at this point that, you know, there's probably a little bit of kind of feeling that they can justify it or get away with, not get away with it, but consumers will accept it because there's not another competitive option for them as well. So that's the news story. I don't know, gentlemen. Does it do you get a little sticker shock here, or does it feel like this is just the inevitable march into you know 4K 60 frames per second uh, gaming?
I get a little. I guess you can say there's a little bit of sticker shock, but that's only because it's different from what we've been seeing for so long. But I completely 100% understand why it's happening. Like, I mean, development costs have gone up. That these games require more time and people to make. So it's never made sense that the pricing has stayed that way, other than it being a psychological thing anyway. And like you said, they've tried to supplement it with microtransactions and DLC. I very rarely purchase DLC, and I never use microtransactions. I don't know if I'm unique in that, but they're going to start, recouping some more revenue from gamers like me. I found an interesting article from 2013 on Ars Technica, and it says why retail console games have never been cheaper historically. So they took um, the average price for new console games and adjusted them for inflation. So like back in the early 80s, you're looking at $58 to 80, like at the low end, to $83 at the high end. They said in 82, Activision's Tennis would be $20, which in 2013 price was $48. B-17 Bomber for the Intellivision was $40, which would be $96 in 2013 dollars. And they kind of just show like by 93 you were looking at $77 to $100 range for these cartridges. I remember purchasing Zelda Ocarina of Time at Sears in 1998 for I think it was $59.99, and that money has there's been inflation since then. So really they dropped a little bit when we went from cartridges to discs. So but starting about 2002, we hit that 45 to $60 uh, range, and it's been like that for over a decade now. So I think it was inevitable. It just they couldn't continue, with that price point. Like, I mean, I got to think that during that time period, though, there's been other things besides microtransactions that have helped offset costs. Um, I think that gaming, I don't want to say going into the mainstream, that's kind of a weird way to put it, but I remember uh, playing, forget which racing game it was. It might have been Burnout 3 or maybe Need for Speed. I don't recall which, but it was actually interesting to me to see advertisements like billboards in the game advertising real things. And it was like there was a point at which, they crossed the line into more like a Hollywood thing where you had product placement. Um, we started seeing fellows like Mr. T advertise for World of Warcraft. We it the business got bigger, it felt like, during that time, so they may have been able to tap into other alternative revenue streams and keep some of that development, um, or some of that, we're able to hide some of those costs from the consumer. But it's just, I think it was inevitable to get to this point.
I think that's a good point. Like the margins, the net gross may have stayed the same because the industry expanded, and so you were selling to more people at a same price point, um, rather than selling to fewer people at what would have been a higher price at the time. So, but yeah, I think that it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think it and what this does to sales, if this actually changes things. Um, if the attach rates are different than in previous consoles, if this is going to be the price. But I also think, like, in some ways, uh, that it makes things, it makes the subscription services like PlayStation Now and Game Pass certainly more attractive for a consumer coming into this. That if you can get, the box and then add in $15 a month for a handful of games or for an instant catalog of games, versus paying $70 or you know the equivalent of paying $15 for the next 4.5 months. Like, is that, you know it'll be interesting to see what this does for sales. The chances are, realistically, that it may not change sales that much at all, because the people that are going to be day one people are probably going to still have the disposable income to do this. And when you get big spikes in game sales around the holiday season, those are always accompanied with deep discounts as well. And I don't think that even the next generation isn't going to be, you know, isn't going to be immune to that. That we're going to still see those kind of deep sales at different times of the year.
Yeah, I was actually kind of surprised that they didn't start the hike up on this generation, Xbox One, PS4, but I mean, they held off, so it didn't really surprise me. I mean, I figured it was coming sooner or later, and I guess 2K was like, all right, let's just throw it out there, and I guess I didn't even think about the gaming services too, like you just said. So I mean, it kind of doesn't make sense too that those people might flock to those a little bit more now. I know I got the Ultimate Game Pass, so I can there's a bunch of games that are always coming out day and date. Even non first party games. Now they're smaller games, sure, but it's still a day and date game that you can get on Game Pass for free, technically. So it's kind of nice just to have that option. I guess the other thing too, in here, and I don't think you mentioned it, was there's no upgrade, there's no free upgrade to the new systems for NBA 2K.
Correct. There is no free upgrade. The only upgrade you get is if you buy the $100 edition, and then you get the upgrade. Or
Yeah.
technically, you get both SKUs. Is kind of what it is. Is that there's not an upgrade; it's two different SKUs.
Yeah, you're gonna buy them separately. So I just thought that was kind of interesting, just because, well, at least on Microsoft side, I I don't think Sony's said anything about the upgrade or if there is going to be an upgrade, kind of like Microsoft's doing now. Um, but we've already heard obviously any first party games on Microsoft's side, they're going to be a free upgrade if you buy it on the One to the Xbox Series X. CD Projekt Red has said Cyberpunk is going to be a free upgrade for those assets when they come out next year for the real assets upgrade access. Supposedly, Series X is going to bump it up a little, but there's supposed to be like a whole, I guess, set of upgrades that they're going to do for next year that they're going to release. So I just thought that was kind of interesting on that side too. All right, so gentlemen, we have a game here that I wasn't expecting that was actually going to be coming back to getting a re-release, but also has some new content. Swiss Guard. Tell us that game. What is this game that's coming out now? Re-releasing.
Kingdoms of Amalur: Re-Reckoning. And so this was interesting. I've never played it. I heard it was good. Like I believe that the
It is
critical,
good. I mean,
yeah,
I played it back in the day. It feels like a single player MMO to a certain degree. It's got kind of that kind of quest based action RPG. It doesn't have timers. It's a little more actiony, but it definitely, because again, this was the one that was built into or part of the big. It was going to be an MMO as well. That Kingdoms of Amalur was built. You had Todd McFarlane as an artist. You had
yeah,
Salvatore.
yeah.
Yep.
And I remember following the development pretty closely because it was 38 Studios, and Kurt Schilling is one of my favorite pitchers. Bloody sock game against the Yankees and everything. So like, as a Red Sox fan, I kind of enjoyed seeing his gaming side, I guess you could say. And I know he was a big EverQuest player, but that's the rosy side. And then the not so rosy side was there was a lot of legal drama, let's say. I know there was something to deal with, like I want to say had something to do with a loan from the state of Rhode Island, and there was a whole lot of were they going to be able to pay their employees. But so I'm happy that in 2018 THQ Nordic bought the rights, and I'm excited that the game is going to have a re-release, and not just like being ported to modern consoles, but they are going to add, I believe, a little bit of content. In the tweet that we saw from Wario64, it says expansion called Fate's Worth. That'll be coming in 2021. Re-Reckoning itself is coming September 8th, 2020. So yeah, it's been one of those games that's always been like on my radar, that it's like, oh, I needed to play it. And I'm kind of glad that we're gonna have that opportunity to play it with it, getting a little bit more polish and love now.
So the interesting thing here for me was really the surprise about the new content, right? Like this is, I don't know that I saw a whole lot of detail about the DLC coming next year. My assumption is that it is, since it's not coming out day and date with the release, that it's not something that was created prior to the purchase. It is very likely that the purchase also included all the assets, so they could be building it based on on top of what was already created. There were a ton of assets and worlds created for that. I was listening to, I think it was Giant Bombcast a couple months ago when they first announced Re-Reckoning, and and they were talking about how the DLC is actually like the last DLC that was in the game, and the Re-Reckoning will include the two DLCs that came out, has some of the more flavor of what they were hoping to do with the MMO. I never played the DLC, so I don't really know what that is, but find that interesting, and I think the fact that they're building upon it is is maybe like a value add, another reason for somebody to think about picking this up. That this is not just a one and done kind of a remaster, but this is something that has a little more life in it, and maybe that's part of the reason for the why they've invested in creating an expansion for a you know 11-year-old game, 12-year-old game at this point. Um, so the other piece of here that I thought was interesting is that originally it was supposed to come out mid-August. Amazon, I think, actually still has it listed as August 18th. So they, as many things do these days, they got pushed back a little bit as well.
Yeah, this is another game that I never got to play, unfortunately, but it looked cool from everything I saw and everything. I always heard good things about it, and I thought it was kind of cool the way they were trying to like build this whole world with this game, and then like you said, the MMO was supposed to come out, and that kind of fell apart. But another interesting thing is I didn't realize that 38 Studios, obviously they developed it, but EA published it. So and in the article they mentioned how EA still has the publishing rights, but obviously some kind of deal was made. I don't know if they're still going to publish it, or it doesn't really say in the article. In this one from IGN at least.
No, because it's I think the current right. I mean, the publisher this time is going to be THQ Nordic.
Okay, so it is okay. All right. So I wonder if they just bought the rights then outright then, or I don't know. It's kind of weird. So yeah, it's definitely cool. I'll definitely want to. I'll pick it up and I don't know. Does it say here? Is it going to be full priced when it re-releases? I don't think it says here. Does it?
The Amazon listing has it at $40.
Oh, it does have it 40. Okay.
Whether or not that's actually what it's at, but that's kind of that's what they're taking pre-orders at. So the most recent article from 2 days ago or so has three different price points for it. It has I think this is on PC Gamer, that it lists a $30 price point, and then there's a $40 price point is the kind of base price, and then there's a $55 price point that has the remaster, and it includes the DLC when it comes out, and then there's like a $100 collector's edition, something like that.
That's interesting. There's a collector's edition for a re-release, so I don't know if I've ever heard of that before in recent times, at least. So, not for a re-release though. That's kind of weird. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I remember the whole legal thing with this one. When it first went down with Kurt Schilling and all that, and I don't remember what the outcome actually was. It was of that. Do you?
The outcome is that they defaulted on it, and taxpayers were left holding on to, basically that it got passed back down through the state. Is that they defaulted on their loan from the state, and the state owned some of their equipment, some of the buildings. They repossessed what they could in terms of trying to recoup some money for it, and they filed bankruptcy. But the state was left kind of in debt over this transaction, at least.
Okay. All right. Well, that stinks, to say the least.
No, it's. I mean, that's like a whole nother topic of how much, who should be responsible for development for stuff like this. So, but yeah, I'm just that's what kind of was so depressing for me about it, was like there was this game I was interested in, and it was just weighed down by the chaos of the development around it. But it's like it feels like the developers and they had a good creative team, I think, to putting into it. So I'm hoping being piloted by THQ Nordic now, it gets a little bit more attention.
Yeah, and I'm assuming like if this had been if this game had blown up and been a huge game, there probably wouldn't have been a big deal with everything else, right? With the studio itself, because they would have been able to pay off everything. Is that how I'm understanding it? Okay.
Well, I mean, I think it was.
So I know it did decent, but I don't think it was like a huge, success or anything.
I don't think, from what I remember, because I remember reading about this rather, extensively at the time because of the financial pieces of it, and that there was enough sunk cost into the development of the MMO that there wasn't enough. Even if this would have sold gangbusters, if the MMO never released, they were never going to make back their money. It was very much, this was a proof of concept, and it was kind of a bridge project to help some funding. But it was by the time that this got released, they had invested a lot in kind of the development around the the MLR MMO.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it was a matter of being incredibly overambitious and looking at World of Warcraft and I guess EverQuest with uh, a little bit of hubris.
Okay. So they were already in hole basically at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, they did a lot of world building, character building, and not as much game building up front, which is fine if you've got the time and the money, but they were running out of that.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. So, well, that actually does it for all our main news stories. For once, we're actually under time here. So let's jump into some of the other ones that some of you had picked out here. Now, I don't remember who actually voted for what here because I deleted all that by mistake. I was going to copy it over and I forgot. But these first couple stories, they are in the same vein as all the allegations going around lately with abuse and work abuse, sexual abuse and harassment and everything like that. So the Ubisoft vice president, and I'm going to try to say his name here, Maxime Belland. He resigned recently from allegations of workplace abuse. The publisher on this article, this is from PC Gamer, Andy Chalk, says the publisher will continue to investigate complaints against him, but for right now he has resigned. He is no longer working at Ubisoft, and they just had somebody a couple weeks ago too, didn't they? Was it a creative director, I believe?
It was a creative director on Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Okay,
So yeah, there were a number of allegations that were coming out around kind of the leadership in Ubisoft, and so first you had Valhalla take a couple hits there, um, multiple people on that team, and then you get the one of the VPs here as well. So that was kind of some of the kind of associated news stories around this, is that there was a culture of this, and you had um, uh, the Ubisoft president. I'm gonna not say his name correctly, so I'm just gonna say the Ubisoft president.
there you
Um, and he had said that they are, committed to changing the culture, to investigating this, and he had said that prior to the VP kind of coming out and being released. So it makes sense that, I mean, I'm glad that they're taking some action here. It'll be interesting to see if more creators, more developers come, get, I'm not going to say swept up in this because it's a product of their own actions. So
go. Right.
that are those actions come to the forefront and are held accountable.
Yeah. Swiss, any comments
Yes,
on this one?
ease Gourmand, right?
E-
Gourmand
sure.
trying, yes. Uh, anyhow, Swiss, any thoughts on this?
I don't think there's really too many angles you can go on this. It's like, you know, they did something wrong, and like you said, they're being held accountable for it. So I just hope that um, the people that remain at the company um, behave uh, respectfully and you know do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean that's what I you follow that rule and things tend to work out. Um, I don't know. It's they mentioned like a party culture and it's just I don't know. Be respectful, be
Yeah,
professional.
and they had mentioned he actually just had returned back to Ubisoft earlier this year after being at Epic for a little while, where he resigned. Where he resigned from that company too. So I wonder if there's any shenanigans going over there too. But just business wise, do you think is this going to be a big hit on Ubisoft, or is just kind of like okay, we're gonna kind of like the last one, we have people to fill in for him. I mean, he's kind of vice president, so he's higher up in the company. So, but do you think there's any?
For me to think of how many like what game companies would really, you know, fold if they lost one of their lead producers? Like who is so central to like one of these publishers or developers that they can't afford to lose them? I'm trying to, I think Ubisoft is a machine at this point.
Yeah.
I think they can survive, and like, some of these guys being pushed out. Um, Nintendo, uh, you know, I'm not trying to lump in like Shigeru Miyamoto or anybody, but I'm just thinking in general, like who would have a problem with this? These big publishing companies, these big development companies, I think they can weather these troubles, I think.
Yeah, this wasn't a big creative developer on a brand new IP, right? This is not the creator. This is not Assassin's Creed 1 or 2 at this point. It's a relatively established framework that they're building on. Yeah, and I think that in some ways, certainly Ubisoft is big enough with enough companies across the world that it allows some opportunities for somebody else to step in. Um, and as you were saying, with the party culture that they identified, like in theory, and hopefully what this means is that whoever steps in has an opportunity to change the corporate culture for the positive as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if this was obviously if it was a smaller company, indie or something, or mid tier, maybe it would take a hit. But yeah, you're right. I mean, with someone like Ubisoft, obviously, they have I don't want to say unspecified, but just an ungodly amount of people working on Valhalla as it is, and that's just Valhalla. I mean, who knows? All the other games that they're working on too. That how many people are working on there right now. So, and like I said, obviously this is a higher up person, so they're not getting their hands dirty with the game itself, most likely, more than likely. So they'll probably be fine. So along the same lines, Evo 2020, which is the long-running video game tournament, which just does fighting games, I believe. It's just all been fighting games, Street Fighter, Tekken.
Yep.
I know they had Smash in there the last few years or so. The tournament itself has now been canceled. They were going to do an online version, which I think people had the reservations on just that, because obviously doing an online tournament, people's connections and stuff like that, stuff can happen. Might not be totally, stable. But this kind of follows the firing of the co-founder. I just had his name and I lost it. Joey
Joey,
Sular.
let's say yeah, Sular. Yeah.
So, all right. So there were some acknowledgments of sexual assault against a minor, and when obviously after this came out, all the other people were like, all right, we gotta, this guy's gone basically, and with that they canceled the tournament for this year. Now
I'm going to jump in.
no,
If
go
you
ahead.
don't mind, because there's a little more nuance here. Is that when this first broke about the accusations, Evo as an entity put him on administrative leave, and then you had the kind of corporate trickle effect of NetherRealms pulling out. You had Capcom pull out. You had Namco pull out. You had a number of people who were pulling out. And even some of the smaller ones like Main Six, who had the Dims Fighting Herds, which was one of the few games that was going to be in Evo because of the stable net code. Capcom technically was already out of Evo because Street Fighter wasn't going to be used in the online mode because of its net code. But then you had a bunch of commentators pull out. It had some of this, like, there was this kind of snowball effect of support leaving Evo because of this person. Some of the commentators, who used to work with Evo talked about never wanting to work with him again because of this person. And then they, the organization took more action in terms of, not putting him just on administrative leave, but, removing him from the company and then deciding to cancel Evo for this year as well.
Yeah.
So was this accusation no, like did nobody knew about this history until recently, or was this something where it was resolved in the financial, in the not the financial, excuse me, like resolved legally, you know, 20 years ago, and now is just now being unearthed?
No, from my reading of it, this was relatively recent. I mean, this was not something like a previous statement that had happened, that had been, as you said, decades ago. Um, uh, I think this was, um, you know, there is some discussion over it still, obviously, and I don't want to kind of try to litigate this, um, but it does seem like it's not like immediately. Like it has happened a little while ago, but once it came out, there were a few other instances of people talking about similar situations related to this person as well. So it wasn't just a one off from my reading of it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to read the article here. I think maybe the initial one might have been from a while ago, but yeah, like you mentioned, it's more people are coming out about things that have
Yep,
happened.
I
So
think that's
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is
His
the
his statement makes it seem like it was something that he regrets from a long time ago and he's been working on it. But if
right,
there's other, there's other stuff coming. And
yeah,
I
more
mean,
stuff's
yeah,
coming out.
yeah,
makes it a little more challenging.
yeah,
Yeah. So, well, it's good. I mean, it's good to see the industry cracking down on this. Obviously, it's coming around, everywhere in every industry. But video games are a huge thing nowadays, and we always we have the cons and stuff like that where stuff comes out, and it's just good that that this stuff's coming out and people are getting they're getting held up to see to what happens. So it's nice to see. So let's leave on a little bit lighter note here. We're getting pretty deep here. Nintendo, this is probably be the last one, unless you guys want to go over anything else that's been put out there for this past
No,
couple
this is a
weeks.
good cheery one to end on. So
Yeah, so Nintendo had their July game updates for the NES and Super NES, which I thought I had the. Hold on a second. I just got to get the article because it kind of locked up on me. All right, so here for the Super NES, we have Donkey Kong Country. We have Natsumi Championship Wrestling, which actually kind of looks kind of cool. Kind of like the way that looks. And then for the NES, we have the
yeah, it looks
Immortal.
like a classic kind of the WWE, WWF kind of, without the licensing. It's like
Yeah,
that kind of 16-bit wrestling feel to it.
yeah, just kind of cool. You can do crazy stuff, and you're flying around the ring, so it's actually kind of cool. I might definitely check that one out. Donkey Country, I think I played that. Back on the NES. I'm not sure, but obviously, definitely I can check it out now. And then for the NES, the Immortal, which I don't remember that game at all. I'm not
It's
sure
an
if.
isometric kind of puzzle RPG. And the only reason I remember that is because I can remember the issues or the issue of Nintendo Power that had it. But yeah, it was one of those kind of isometric, um, kind of the British feel to it in terms of some of that style.
Okay, yeah, I was looking at the video and I was like, I don't remember. I don't know what this game is. I've never seen this before, so it's just kind of weird. But yeah, I definitely want to check out the two on the Super Nintendo when they come out.
so
And
Prime, I thought you had the SNES Classic.
I do, yes.
Oh, so you do have it. You
Yeah,
own it this day. Okay.
yep. Yeah, I didn't get it right when it came out, but I got it not too long.
No, but
Ah,
you have Donkey Kong Country, is what he's saying.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm
It's
sorry.
there. Yes.
I did not realize that.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I haven't played
It
it for a
is
while.
there. That's for sure.
Switch
So, and
different.
then we also got the Nintendo news today that there's a Treehouse Live coming tomorrow with an unannounced Way Forward title. So, in
Yes.
addition to
they
some
they do a lot of licensed properties, don't they?
licensed properties, kind of cartoony 2D platforming
Yeah.
stuff,
Oh, way
is
forward.
where
Okay.
they're. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I got randomly enough. I had like DuckTales or something from them, which
Yep.
the
They
remake
did that
wasn't too
remaster
bad.
or the
Yeah.
remake of it. Yeah, the very art, the kind of hand drawn animation aspect. Yep.
Trying to
I'm
figure.
seeing this Donkey Kong Country box art, and it's kind of cool seeing the old kids to adult. rating. I don't know. Just,
Oh, yeah, the KA. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah. I worked at
everyone.
retail in high school when Donkey Kong Country came out, and I, in my bedroom, I had Wednesday. We rotated through kind of promo stuff, and when the Donkey Kong Country stuff came down, there was a big banner of it, releasing in whenever it was, in November sometime. So I had the Donkey Kong Country banner in my room. I can remember that. So yeah, it was it's a fine platformer. It gets knocked for maybe not being as tight as a Mario game. It certainly, was hyped up in the kind of pre-rendered 3D animation aspect because it was coming out right as the launch of the PlayStation, and so time time puts it in a different context in terms of the game industry, but as a standalone thing, it's actually a really kind of fun um, co-op platformer that my son and I just played through last year again. So
It's pretty impressive,
Well,
though. I mean, for a Super Nintendo game. I mean, if you think about it. So that, and I think they released Killer Instinct also at that point, which was, I mean, it was what it was for a Super Nintendo.
but it was that same technology.
Yeah.
Kind of the yep, pre-rendered and then animated. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And Paper Mario, that's the kind of the main event, if you wanna, if you will, for the Treehouse Direct or Treehouse Showcase. And then they're supposed to show off the Way Forward game. So, they do. Okay, they do the Shantae titles. That's what I knew. I thought I had heard of them before. Just couldn't remember. So yeah. All right. Any other news stories that you guys wanted to jump into or anything that caught your eye?
We got to cover it even before an hour. Way to go!
We're still not as good as we were back in the E2KG in 30 days.
We kept it tight though tonight. All right, so next week we got our GX show. And before I go a little bit more into that, we have our Pix Plays also that I believe you guys will be talking about because I will be off. So what our Pix Plays was for last time, our assignment, we were heading into Independence Day, into July 4th here in the U.S. So we wanted to play a game that was some kind of... there's a war game basically, either in America's history or if it was some kind of fantastical land or sci-fi or something like that. We were able to play any genre, so that was nice. And then we were going to bring it back and talk about it next week. So Gascles was going to play a World of Warplanes. DB, you're going to play Assassin's Creed 3.
Yes, yep, got it downloaded. Watched Hamilton last week. Gonna play some
Nice.
Assassin's Creed this week. So get all my Revolutionary War pop culture wrapped up in.
Within a couple weeks. Swiss, did you have anything that you were going to play, or were you going to skip this one this time?
Thinking about it, I was tempted slightly to do a Metal Gear Solid 4, but I think I want to do it more like rooted in like real history. I'm if I can't think of another game, I'm probably going to go with give Warsaw another chance. It's the PC game I bought last year, and it deals with the Polish resistance in the city of Warsaw, and when they did their uprising against the Nazi occupation in World War II.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I remembered you talking about that before. Yep.
Cool. All right. So DB, you will be the host next week for the GX show, and then it will be Swiss and Agascles as your co-hosts. Gentlemen, DB, Swiss, any last words here before we say goodnight? Nothing?
So we made it under time this time, but in 2 weeks from now, we'll have the Xbox showcase. So I'm sure we will go overtime there. So
Yes.
we're just banking it
Eh.
the next time.
And I'm wondering, though, because I think Ubisoft has their showcase Sunday, I believe.
Ubi has theirs on the
So
12th,
maybe
and then the
they'll
20th
be...
Xbox. So yeah, we're gonna have two publishers here by the time we circle back around for the 23rd with our next deep dive episode.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's going to be some other surprise that's going to come out during the week or the next 2 weeks, too. So we'll see. Maybe there'll be a special episode. Who knows? All right. DB, Swiss, thanks for joining me tonight. It was a great conversation. Once again, check us out. Check the GX show next week. Same time and channel. We'll get it posted usually about either sometime during the weekend, or like early week of the following week. So check us out there. Check us on YouTube, Enough to Keep Going, or Enough to Keep Going Network, E2KG Network. We have SoundCloud if you want to just listen to the audio versions, and we're also on, I believe it goes to Spotify and, dang it, I always forget that last one. Podcaster or
Stitcher.
Yes, Pocket Cast. That was the other one.
Okay.
It goes to. I think Stitcher kind of like sends it out to everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of spits it out everywhere. All right. So I am Osiris Prime. This has been episode number 151, which I don't think I mentioned, or maybe I did. I don't know. It's been a long day. I'm very tired right now. DB, Swiss, thanks for watching. Or thanks for joining me. Everybody else, thanks for watching. And we will see you next time.